Hello. Welcome to week 11 of class. We're starting to get to the end times, at least with this semester. So we're gonna get into some of the wrap up stuff and things like that. Just quick highlights for you guys. Next week, I'm gonna have pretty much the rest of the big assignments or projects posted for you ahead of time. This is just so that you guys have a chance to review things ahead of time, have as much time to work on it as possible. I don't mind if you work ahead when it comes to like the presentation or the final, just to get it out of the way. I want to give you guys a couple weeks to work on it um, and to really kind of go through everything. Obviously, uh, we're in week 11. We're halfway through it, so we'll have 4 more weeks of class, and then another, uh, or yeah, 4 more weeks of class, um, to go through the rest of everything. So we'll have one more essay next week, and then there's a assignment about job postings, your presentations, and the exam. So that's gonna be a lot of stuff posted for you guys next week, and I understand that that could look kind of overwhelming, but it'll all be broken up into their specific modules, and the due dates and stuff will be there. It's just gonna be a lot posted at the same time. What I will do for that is for each of the like specific assignments or projects, I'm gonna do a separate short video dedicated to kind of explaining that, so that way you don't have to try to scroll through the weekly video um, and find where that stuff is. That video will just live either on the assignment page or in its own page right next to the assignment, just so that you guys can have that explanation. Um, yeah, all of that. I'm gonna have that posted next week. I've already um, finalized how some of the projects are gonna look. Have those pages made. I'm just gonna get them published all at the same time for you guys. Give you a good 4 weeks to work on everything. So if you have any questions about those, obviously you can always reach out. But other than that, let's go ahead and get started with week 11. Week 11, legal and regulatory challenges in esports. This is a tough one for a couple reasons. One, not a lot of resources out there on it. I mean, the closest you get is like agents and maybe some lawsuits and stuff that have happened over the recent years. But it's something that is low key kind of like taboo to talk about with some of these challenges. And a lot of times, leagues themselves barely make statements about stuff that's going on with their stuff. So I've picked kind of out of the very broad umbrella that is legal and regulatory challenges. I've gone ahead and picked like four specific topics and stuff that we'll cover. Got a notes page that I'm going to walk you guys through. And hopefully that helps with the questions you need to answer. I understand that research for these can be kind of hard, but please do try your hardest to find a solid source for some of these questions. But this one is structured as questions rather than trying to find an article, break it down, and stuff like that. Just because this is a, much like last week, kind of a very nuanced topic that is very easy to kind of take a spiral into as you try to research. So let's go ahead and just kind of talk through kind of these four main spots. So the four that we're going to cover: player contracts and protection, governance and regulation, cheating, match fixing, and competitive integrity, and intellectual property and content ownership. You're going to see some overlap between these as we go through, and I'll get this page posted for you guys as well, so you do have some notes to look at as you're going through everything. Um, yeah, player contracts and protection. One of the biggest concerns with esports and esports teams, or just esports in general, I guess, is protecting the players, because not every org or every person in an org has a player's best interests in mind when they're making decisions. That's been true for literally anything. Honestly, people will take advantage, no matter what it is, and it's happened in esports too. Young professionals or creators joining a team who don't have any legal knowledge or background, don't have a lawyer or an agent, and their parents don't have any law experience or anything like that either. There's a lot of times where you'll see stuff like this come into play. An example from, I say recent years, but it's not super recent, is the whole release the contract stuff with Tifu. So that was an example of a pro player slash creator. Those Fortnite guys, there's a lot of overlap there between what they were. Signed a contract, who did not like how it turned out. And a lot of that was due to the fact that when he signed it, things were like hidden ish, like hidden from him, or he just didn't have the knowledge and everything that was going with it. I kind of got screwed over by that contract. Um, and yeah, went through a whole very big thing with release the contract and stuff. I'm sure you guys at least heard about it a little bit. But some key issues in there: fair wages and benefits. A lot of times you have these like tier two, sometimes even professional organizations that are signing players for the absolute minimum that they can. If they're not a part of a franchise league, there's not like a league minimum that they have to pay their players. So like signing them for like hey, we'll cover all your travel and stuff like that, but you got to be doing all these tournaments and expecting to win and stuff like that, right? um and a lot of times orgs won't take player money in terms of like prize money and stuff like that, but that's not true for every org. So that's where it's like, I'm a player, I'm the one that won this money, I should keep all of it. Other orgs like, well, I'm funding you to be able to play in this tournament, I get the prize money, you'll get a split. So a lot of different ways that things are going into there, and like there's some orgs who have the philosophy that I'm never taking players prize money, that's theirs, we'll get money in different ways. Other orgs, that's how they try to stay afloat. I don't agree with that. I think that prize money is players. But there again, that's one of the issues. Another one, contract length and buyouts. If you're a young kid signing your first esports contract, and it's a like a 5-year contract for a team, that's tough, right? Like you're essentially trapped on that team unless they have some sort of opt out or buyout option, and that's if another team wants to buy you out, or you could buy out your own contract, kind of thing, which oftentimes isn't going to happen in esports. So it's something that you really players need to have someone there to kind of look over um, what's what's in the contract for them. Like, yeah, it should probably just be with how volatile esports and games are, and especially for some games that like release a new iteration every year, like Call of Duty, where there are major changes throughout the year with different patches and stuff. Like, you got to be able to have some flexibility as a player to be able to go to the team that's going to best suit you. Um, like, I mean, there's been situations where like orgs will lock down players and not let them go to another org because they know that they're going to thrive somewhere else. And if they're not playing on our team, because like on the bench or something, we don't want them playing anywhere. We don't want them to beat us. So it's unfortunate, but that's something that legitimately happens. Rights and content to personal branding. So a lot of times you'll see um, orgs be like, okay, we're going to help you create a YouTube channel, but we actually own that. Um, and profits and stuff like that are going to come to us rather than you, and we'll just pay you a salary. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But personal branding in their content, if they're the ones doing all the work, it should be theirs. But if they're getting resources and stuff like that, and videos are being made and produced by an organization, maybe there's an argument for who really owns it and stuff. But just something to keep an eye on. And then kind of youth protection, parental consent for minors. This is another one too. Esports can start very young, right? To be a pro player to compete in some of these tournaments. Depends on your game. Some have like you need to be 18 to play. Others are just as soon as you can compete and can play at that level. So just needs to be some protection there for like child children, because like there are child labor laws and stuff like that. And then also like parental consent and understanding that there should be someone there to help them make those decisions. There are some like like I said, franchised leagues or other leagues and organizations and stuff that do have specific guidelines, but there's not really consistency across all of esports, and that definitely leaves room for predatory behavior and exploitation of players, which is very unfortunate. Next section, governance and regulation. This is stuff that we've talked about before, especially in the last class, but very important to touch on here. Esports does not have a universal governing body. Each game is governed by its developer or publisher, and rules can vary wildly between titles and regions. And not just like gameplay rules, but rules of like actual teams, competition, and stuff like that. Um, so it can be kind of tough. Obviously, it's very decentralized. There's not, um, yeah, there's no universal protections or regulation or things like that. So there's a few questions that you can raise from this, like should there be a global regulatory framework um, for all of the sport? So there's like the think about, I guess the this is stuff that we've talked about, but think about like the IOC for the Olympic Committee, or each kind of national sport um, association, stuff like that, like USA Basketball or things like that, where they're overseeing like the sport um in that country or things like that. So there's some examples in sports, and it's hard to pull a direct translation from sports because like again, no one owns baseball, but someone owns League of Legends. So is it up to the developers to just universally say this? But then there's not like a coalition of developers to say this is how things should operate. Each company is going to have their own way of how esports should operate, or even if they even care about esports. So it gets really tough here because, like, to answer the question, who should be responsible for enforcing rules? Like, I don't know. Like, should there be some type of regulation committee just for all of esports? But are they going to partner with every single developer that wants to do an esports title? Um, yeah, this one's tough. How do we handle issues like doping, player behavior, cross-border competition? All of this has to come down to the league that they're in, right? At least it does now. So is there a world where some type of governing body could exist? I think that's actually one of the questions that I asked you. Yeah, should there be one? So I would love to hear your guys' kind of benefits and downsides to there is this third party organization that governs and regulates just esports as a whole. How could that exist? What does that look like? Um, yeah, that's a tough one. Cheating, match fixing, and competitive integrity. Competitive integrity, heart of any esport or sport. But as soon as you include money, there's the risk of cheating and match fixing. That's true for literally anything. It's been an issue for a long time in literally anything that involves money. There will be people that find a way to cheat or to match fix. Challenges for something like cheating and match fixing, straight up cheats, walling, aimbot, stuff like that. Especially when it comes to like online tournaments where people are using their own hardware. I'm sure you can perform hardware checks, but there are ways to hide it. Yeah, let's have a hand and monitor cam and all of this stuff, but there are still ways that people hide this kind of stuff. Um, I mean, when you think about match fixing, you just think about CS:GO, unfortunately. But yeah, players throwing matches for profit due to gambling reasons. They're under pressure, different things like that. Um, Unregulated or illegal betting markets when it comes to things like esports. Um, Betting on esports is still just trying to break through. Um, I mean, I think it's gonna happen, kind of no matter what. But maybe like regulating it in some ways, but there's always going to be that unregulated betting, which could lead to match fixing and stuff like that. And then there's just not inconsistent consequences and stuff. A lot of that has to do with the fact that each thing is kind of governed by their own league. I mean, you see like I mean, very recently, CS players had been banned for 10 years for match fixing, just got unbanned like this year, and were able to compete and stuff now. So you'll have 10-year bans. Sometimes there's lifetime bans for the different types of cheats. You saw an issue in Halo last year. Was it at Worlds or the one before? Where basically a player switched out the SSD in a computer and was accused of cheating or having cheats on that SSD. Or it was some kind of software to give them an advantage in game, basically. Um, and the consequences were he was banned for a full year from it for PC tampering and stuff like that. I think it was found that he didn't actually cheat and was given the okay by an employee to make some of those changes. But crazy that you'd like bring your personal SSD and throw it in a league computer or something to try to get better performance when everyone else is playing on the same spec computers for everything. Kind of nuts there. A lot of opportunities for some of that cheating, match fixing, or just again competitive integrity when it comes to that stuff. IP and content ownership. This is where like League of Legends and Valorant are owned by Riot. Overwatch, Call of Duty, Activision Blizzard, um, Valve with with everything and stuff too, right? So at the foundation of every esport is a video game, and that game is the IP of a private company. This gives game developers tremendous control over tournaments, broadcasting, and monetization. This creates tension between developers who want to protect their brand and control the ecosystem, teams and tournament organizers who want long term security, content creators and players who generate value but don't own the IP. So, an example that we went over last year that kind of crosses all of these here is the lawsuit between Activision Blizzard and Scump, and I think Hex was on that as well. The Call of Duty professional. So he is someone who is a very large streamer, and now that he's retired, proves that he is a large streamer as well. But was also a Call of Duty League player at the time. Um, so Call of Duty saw it that like, hey, Scump, you're a player for our league. It's okay that you stream and do all this stuff, but you just kind of need to be playing Call of Duty. And sponsorships and stuff should not conflict with those of the league. But as a private content creator, when he's offered tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to play other games on his stream, you want to take that to kind of secure your bag, secure your future, right? But because he's a contracted league player, he's unable to, has to turn down this money where he would set himself up. I mean, it's already well off, but set himself up for the future even more. But just can't because he's a league player. So here you have a little bit of everything, right? Um, you have the developers who want to kind of control their competitive ecosystem and their players that are in it. And then you have your content creator who's like, dude, I want to like make my money, and can't do this without it. A lot of issues with teams and stuff as well, with the franchise leagues, wanting that long term security of maybe a franchise league, but then it's like, hey, we're investing all this money and not really getting the payout and stuff that we deserve. There's not really profit sharing. Like, oh my, you're selling a CNN game with my team's logo on it, but you're only giving me this much money. Why isn't it all of it to help fund these teams that are a part of your league? Lots of stuff that kind of goes into it there. I think this is the most interesting portion of this kind of legal like challenge in esports is the fact that like someone owns the game that you're playing, and if the Nintendo ninjas don't want you hosting a Super Smash Bros tournament, you're getting that letter in the mail saying that hey, you can't have this tournament just because they want their game to be considered like family friendly or whatever their excuse is to where there shouldn't be this type of competition going on in it, right? So lots of things there. I know this was a much longer video so far, but just want to quickly look at the specific questions and stuff that I'm going to be asking you guys. Yeah, without turning this into a full law section, prepared a few questions for you. Try to give solid answers for each of them. And if you can find some resources, please back it up as well. Number one, how can we protect younger amateur players when they sign contracts? What rules should be in place to make sure that they're treated fairly? How do we implement these? League level, esports level, all that. Should there be one main org that makes the rules for all of esports? What would the benefits and downsides be of that? What should happen when players or teams are caught cheating or match fixing? How should leagues or governments handle these situations? Who owns esports content like streams or tournaments? Players, teams, or game developers? Why does this matter? So just some questions there to think about. Let me know if you have any questions along the way. Other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your week.